Hey everyone, you may notice that there's no camera and I probably sound a bit different. I'm actually on tour right now and my band just finished playing a set in Atlanta, so I ran out to the van to look at the patch notes and record this for y'all. So apologies for any audio weirdness that might occur during this. This is just a temp setup and I'll be back home in a few days. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So beta patch notes version 0.105.0. It's beta patch time. For those new to Slay the Spire 2, keep in mind that these changes are pushed to our beta branch to ensure stability, then eventually merge into the main branch. For those who play using controller, we highly recommend using the beta branch as we're trying to resolve crashes related to selection screens when playing via controller/Steam Deck. While our focus is still on fixing crashes and ensuring the game runs on as many hardware configurations as possible, let's look at some of this patch's highlights. So they're moving to bi-weekly patching, which, as you've probably noticed, there was no patch last week, which means that we're getting them every 2. But they said, as you probably noticed, we're moving to patches every 2 weeks rather than weekly as outlined in our early access disclaimer. This may be a bit surprising as the first game patched weekly, but it was a lot of work, so it really sucked. Very understandable from them. Anyways, the 2-week cadence should make it less hectic for us, allowing bigger changes and more time working and polishing stuff before it goes out. It also allows more time for beta players to absorb and give feedback on changes. The Bestiary. This week brings the Bestiary. While it's still an outline of what it will end up being, we hope that seeing these monsters and their animations and data, not yet implemented, all listed in a separate screen will be fun. More importantly than it being fun, it's going to be very useful since we'll be able to look at enemy patterns during gameplay, which means we don't have to rely on a spreadsheet or an outside source, which is very annoying. This is something that was really wanted in Slay the Spire 1, and I'm super glad that we have it. We needed a mod to get this in Spire 1, and I'm assuming that they just saw that mod and basically took the same idea and put it actually into the game. Okay, Doormaker Out, Aeonglass In. Doormaker has been replaced with a brand new boss, Aeonglass. While Doormaker had interesting micro decisions in the fight, I agree, he was over the complexity threshold of what we want and had lingering issues. We decided that starting over fresh will let us hit what we actually want for an Act 3 boss. So I'm a little sad because I think the Doormaker vibes were really good. I personally didn't mind the mechanics at all. I think they needed to do something with like phase 1 of the 3 phases, the ones that let you exhaust cards, because it was often just helpful to the player. But I understand where they're coming from and that it's probably only helpful if you're at high skill levels. And what they're probably trying to do is make it feel better for newer players getting in, because I think if you're new and you see that phase, it probably feels bad. It takes a while, I think, to conceptualize that exhausting is mostly an upside, and it lets you get down to like a tight loop. So Doormaker kind of required a plan going into it. You could sort of look at your deck and say, like, what loop do I want to get down to that I can play through all of the phases? And if you were unable to do that, it probably felt pretty bad. So Aeonglass will throw a video in of what this boss does, and we'll move on and kind of discuss it later. Okay, content and balance. The Bestiary is now available in the Compendium. Silent, nerfed Blade of Ink card, Inky enchantment damage decreased from +2 to +1. I think overall, this is not really a huge change. Like, this card is still insane. The main thing is not the damage, but the fact that you can strip multiple things of artifact and apply a lot of weak. And it also just works really well with relics. Like, just having Inky on this means that you get a relic that says +3 damage on it, +8 damage, whatever. And that's going to be crazy. You can get so much from this card just having synergies with shivs as well, regardless of anything else. Regent, slightly reworked Sword Sage card. Old Sword Sage power costs 2, upgrade to 1. Sovereign Blade now hits all an additional time. Now goes to Sword Sage power, same cost. Sovereign Blade gains replay 1. This is really interesting, as they've noted that it gains synergy with parry now. Before, I don't think that this card felt very good, and it's probably just going to feel cool playing with parry, although it's probably going to be pretty strong. I think parry already, the numbers on it are just kind of ridiculous. Not that you picked it every run or anything, but you're going to be able to sort of actually build around this now, and it also means that you're going to be able to start doing like enchanted stuff on the blade in combat, which is kind of cool. We'll see if they play with this mechanic a bit more. I kind of would like ways to actually upgrade this sword in combat and make this more of a build around thing. I think it'll feel better as well, but I'm not really super attached to this. I think overall just a straight up buff here. Nerfed Bulwark card, block decreased from 13 to 16 to 12 to 15. I think this is a really needed change. This card is pretty ridiculous, mostly just from a damage perspective and from being able to do two things that you want to do at the same time. I don't think this really moves the needle so much, like 13 to 12, whatever. Block numbers do matter in this game more than damage numbers when you change adjustments like this, but yeah, overall, just kind of whatever, probably pulling this more in line with what they want the other block stuff to do. And I see down below that as well, they nerfed Patter, which is very strange. I think of all the block cards at target, we could have just hit Reflect or something. Patter is like, fine, whatever. I don't think that people really take this card super often. Block 9 is a big number, but they've increased block by 1 on a lot of cards in Regent's pool. As well, they buffed Crescent Spear, base damage increased from 6 to 8, which is a huge deal, and makes it much more pickable. I know I poo-poo on this card a lot, but yeah, this is definitely way more takeable now. Buffed Royalties card, gold game from 30 to 35 to 30 to 40. Okay, I guess it makes the upgrade feel better because before you didn't really upgrade this thing. Kind of a win more thing. I think 30 is just enough. Like, the card's already strong enough. I don't really think it needs buffs. Okay, Defect. Buffed Infused Core Relic. Now also gains lightning orbs deal 1 additional damage. This is a relic that you see at the beginning of Act 2 from an Ancient, and fills your slots with 3 lightning orbs. So this is a pretty big deal. We know what happened with Soup going from 6 to 9 damage, and that's a 50% increase. This is not quite as crazy, so it's more in line, 33%. But yeah, really significant power boost here. This is really just going to make this feel less bad. I still don't think it's crazy. Like, I know a lot of people will talk about lightning builds a lot because it feels cool. You can play Voltaic and just blom. But I think the problem with doing something like that is that all the lightning cards, save for 1, Lightning Rod, kind of are just generic deal damage cards. And adding a lot of them to your deck and trying to make this like a core part of your strategy makes it very difficult to find block, which usually just means doing a mixture of like Frost plus some additional orbs randomly, or like a Dark Orb is just more efficient. Lightning Orbs in the first game and also in this game just don't feel that great to try and do a build around thing. I honestly think they could bring Voltaic back to 2 cost from the 3 that it was at, and maybe that would do something. I feel like you're probably never really going to have build arounds. What I'm getting at really is that if you pick this up, don't treat it as something that you're supposed to build your entire strategy around. It's just a damage increase. Like, do the same thing you were going to do. Don't really warp your deck building around this thing. It's just 1 temp focus, which is good, and it only works in Lightning Orbs. I guess it's permanent focus, but yeah, it only works in Lightning Orbs. You still have to solve block. You still have to do other things. Okay. Buffed Hyper Beam, damage increased from 26 to 34 to 28 to 36. Overall, I don't think this is really changing that much. Like, a damage buff is of course appreciated, but this card's problem is not really the damage number. It either ends the fight or it doesn't. In order to make it end fights that it's not already ending, it would have to be an insane number, and that's obviously just not okay, right? If you make this thing do 50, it's just imbalanced. But the problem is really that you lose focus, and losing focus in this game is very bad. It's basically just an Act 1 only card, and after that falls off a ton, like doesn't even do well into the exoskeletons. So your early Act 2 hallways are not really helped by this thing at all. It's pretty hard to pick end of Act 1, I think. I don't think these numbers really change it. Okay, probably the worst change of this patch. Buff Shatter card now evokes all of your orbs twice. This card is nuts. I don't know what they were thinking with this. Like, the output on this card now is ridiculous. Like, Shatter could deal 0 damage now, and you have to remember it still does the AoE, right? Like, it's still doing AoE damage, really easy to pick this early, and then just doesn't fall off now. Like, it's very often that you can just have an insane turn now. Maybe you have 2 Dark Orbs cooking or something, and now I just dual cast all my Dark. Like, that is ridiculous. On top of just like frost blocking, lightning dual casted is still quite strong. Like, every orb dual casted is just strong. This is not going to last more than a patch. I can almost guarantee you this. ridiculous, stupid buff, basically. Okay. Buff Tesla Coil Plus card. Damage decrease from 6 to 4, but lightning triggers increase from once to twice. Similar buff in the way of Shatter. I'm not really sure Defect needed all of these buffs. It really felt pretty good. Like, I think maybe he's the worst character, but, all the characters feel strong right now. So I think the overall power level, like, could come down if anything. And this is probably just a straight buff. Like, if you're picking Tesla Coil, it's because you have lightning. Maybe you have the new upgraded starter relic, and then this gets picked or something. But overall, this is probably just a buff. If you have only one lightning, I could see it not being, but if you do, it's either you drew really bad or this card probably shouldn't be in the deck anyways. So whenever this is in the deck, this is almost always just going to be a nice buff. And a card saying deal damage for no energy is already pretty decent. It just becomes like really pickable now. Buffed upper card, damage increase from 5 to 7 to 6 to 8. I don't think this really changes anything at all. This card is picked if you're trying to cheat something out, not to just deal the 5 or 6 damage or whatever. And I don't think you're ever upgrading it. The upgrading is really, really bad. Okay, colorless cards. Buffed Gold Axe card in multiplayer now deals damage equal to the number of cards played by all players, not just cards played by its owner. This is going to turn this into a legitimate win condition in multiplayer, and I've actually been playing a bit more multiplayer now with like Opum, and probably the other guys from the podcast will do that soon. But other people can scale your Gold Axe for you, and really this is just going to scale pretty similarly to how Gold Axe scales in single player. So if you have a frame of reference for how fast that is, that's probably about what you can expect. Obviously, if someone's able to do like card spam, shiv stuff or whatever, then maybe it gets a lot more pickable, right? Someone else can scale it for you and then you can swing in. But just the way that HP and multiplayer is balanced, it's kind of scaled evenly per player. So probably going to feel about the same as it does in single player, but overall that's a nice change. Okay, enemies. Reworked Doormaker to a new boss, Aeonglass. And this boss has a couple of mechanics that are going to punish kind of spammy decks. Like, again, Shiv decks are going to get hit really hard here. For playing 4 cards, you get a status. And then it sort of does this thing where it takes turns off. And whenever bosses take turns off like this, it gives you a chance to apply debuffs and apply powers and sort of scale. And from what it's doing right now, doesn't seem like it scales fast enough. Need to just play with it a bit more and feel it out. But I think power level wise, as long as you're playing around the mechanic, this is not going to feel too crazy. Overall, what this mechanic does is rewards 2 things. One, if you have stuff in your deck that can eliminate cards in hand, say like Fiendfire, this can actually be a positive thing. Or Stoke, right? And Regent also has things that like transform stuff or work with card creation. And I believe this should work with card creation. We'll see. If the numbers on this are not scaling big enough, you're just not going to get punished. And I think this boss will give you sort of an energy check, because whenever you play 4 cards, right, you're going to want to pay the 1 to play the status. So essentially this is going to do something very similar to the way the Doormaker worked, except it's less punishing. Like if you think about how Doormaker was working, where you sort of got punished for playing cards and you lose energy, it's very similar to that. But you can now decide to just not play the status. I think Ironclad is going to honestly like the statuses, because they can proc something like Inferno or Rupture or whatever it is, and then turn the status into something else later. Defect can also turn the status into something. So it is like the only Act 3 boss that adds statuses. I know Test Subject adds them like phase 2 or 3 or whatever, but honestly, by the time that's happening, you're usually set up and you can't really take advantage of them. But now decks that do take advantage of the statuses can sort of manipulate this to their advantage, which is going to make it feel cooler, I think. Overall, I think I like the vibes of Doormaker better, but the mechanics on this one look pretty interesting. As long as the numbers are big enough, I think it'll be enough of a challenge for sure. Okay, change Fossil Stalker in multiplayer now gains a set amount of strength if it hits any player, instead of gaining strength for each player hit. This was kind of a demonic enemy in multiplayer, because if anyone messed up and couldn't block it, which was oftentimes somebody, right? Just with 4 decks, someone's going to break. Then you would kind of get owned. And now that's just not really happening nearly as much. It is pretty good that they changed it, I think, because multiplayer has a lot of fights that feel very trivial, and then some of the fights that just don't scale fairly with mechanics like this, or the number of players, I should say. So yeah, they're kind of, I think, tweaking it and adjusting it so that multiplayer feels a little more well balanced compared to single player, because I know their focus was single player, and it feels like multiplayer is sort of slipped by a little bit. Not that it was thrown together, but there's not as much care in balancing. So it looks like they're getting to that later in the patching cycle, which is obviously a good thing. Changed Haunted Ship now applies 3 weak on turn 1 instead of applying weak when it attacks. That's a very meaningful difference. just like one more turn of being weakened means that maybe you have to actually deal with like statuses that this thing adds, which before you could just kill it. The HP pool is not big. It's like 67, right? So yeah, you're usually able to just kill this thing really quickly, and being weakened right away on turn 2 at least is going to maybe make you have to deal with the mechanics of this fight a little bit more. Not very likely to. I still think the HP number could probably go up and this thing would be pretty fair, like 75 or 80, I think. I don't know. I'm not a game designer, so it's just an idea. Buff Soulfish, Scream move damage increased from 11 to 12 to 13 to 15. 2 to 3 damage number buff, depending on Ascension here, is pretty meaningful. It's just going to chip you a lot more. Like if you think about how often it does this attack, like you probably expect to see this like 3 times in the fight at least. So like 9 more total incoming damage. Right now, this boss really didn't punish you very hard, I don't think. I think we just got kind of used to dealing with the statuses or picked cards like tech cards to answer them. And so now that it actually just hits you for more, you're going to see pressure from both sides. Overall, just pretty good. Okay. Ancients reworked Tezcatara's Pumpkin Candle relic. The old one said gain 1 energy at the start of each turn, extinguishes at the start of Act 3. This is basically never clicked. You never want this because you want your boss relics to be doing something later into the run to give you power to scale into fighting the final bosses, right? And as Act 4 gets added, it would be even worse. Now it says gain 1 energy at the start of each turn, extinguishes after 5 combats, can be kindled at rest sites. So I'm assuming what this means is that you can sort of re-up this when you need it. You can plan around it and sort of just like think through what you're going to do with your fires, and you really just want to look at your map, right? The nice thing about this is that at the end of each act, you do have a fire. So at the end of Act 2, you have a fire to probably rekindle, and then that's going to last you through the beginning of Act 3. The main issue is that across acts, you're not going to have a campfire to actually rekindle this thing, so you're kind of forcing into using some of your fires to keep this going. But I do think that like using half of your campfires to get permanent energy is just a strong effect. Way better than the previous one for sure. And also down below here, it says move Tezcatara's Seal of Gold relic to option 3 so that's in the same pool as Pumpkin Candle. And this is very good. Overall, a buff to the player. Most of these two relics do very similar things, right? Just getting extra energy at the start of each turn. And when they're good, they're going to be good at the same time and bad at the same time, right? You really don't want to see both of these on the same screen if they're both bad for you, because it just means that now you're not seeing a good relic, right? So yeah, having them in the same pool is really nice. Also means that you're going to see some of the more broken stuff inside of pool 2, which does have some really crazy stuff. So I think overall, this is, again, just a buff to Tez, which is probably still the worst ancient, maybe not anymore. But yeah, added new Neow relics. Kaleidoscope, temp name. Upon pickup, gain 2 card rewards with cards from other characters. I think this is really strong. 2 card rewards is a big amount of front load in this game, and it's going to jumpstart you and make your early game a lot smoother and allow you to take pretty aggressive pathing. Also just really fun. But seeing 2 cards together means that you can pick combo pieces. So normally if like card A cannot enter the deck without card B and you see both of them together, now they can. So you can build synergy right away and then start having a more cohesive deck right from the beginning, which seems very good. Fishing Rod. Every 3 normal combats, upgrade a random card in your deck. This is just a sort of late game scaling option. From Neow, I usually want something that's either front loaded to allow me to take elites to get my late game scaling, or some amount of consistent value. I think overall, most of the time, this is upgrading a lot of base cards on average. If you think about your starter deck, being like 10 cards depending on the character or something, and you always picking 3 cards from your first couple combats, which is not true. Let's say you pick 2 to 3 cards on average, somewhere in that ballpark. The chance of actually hitting the card you want green is not very high. And probably before you start taking elites and advanced hallways, you're going to get 1 upgrade. That doesn't feel super strong to me. It seems okay. It just needs a certain kind of map layout without a super pressuring early game. It's not bad, but it's definitely not on the top tier of things to see. It is kind of an influx of dopamine every couple of floors, though, which maybe is something people will like playing with. I'm not sure. Silken Tress. Enchants all cards in the first card reward with Glam. Glam says replay 1 on it. And replay is a very, very good effect. This seems generically strong. Like, no matter what you get, even if it's just some random card that says deal damage or just block, that's a ton of output. It's draw density as well as energy cheat in the same card. So you're kind of going to have a super card with a chance of really high rolling. Like if you land this on some really broken uncommon, Glacier, right? Darkness, you're going to have a great time. Overall, it feels really hard to break everything. If all the cards they glam on them, something's going to be good. So yeah, seems very strong. Front loaded, again, snowballs you throughout the act. So if you're looking for something to get you through a tough Act 1, which is honestly one of the only things that is really pressuring in this game right now is Act 1, this is just going to be really, really strong. Okay, events. Something special now happens if you have multiple Lantern Key cards. Doesn't apply to multiplayer. This is not going to happen very often. You need like Bing Bong or Mirror or something, and then also to have seen this very specific event inside of Act 2 to get the Lantern Key, right? Not going to be occurring frequently at all. But when it does, you're going to get a little extra bonus. What this allows you to do is click the second option as well as the first one, so you're going to get extra rewarded. The thing about this, I think, is that when you click History Course, you usually just win the run anyways. So doesn't really feel that necessary, but also why not, you know? Okay, art. Added art for Friendship Epic, added new power art for Smoggy, added multi-hit animation for Corpse Slug, added unstun animation for Rock Bullbug, tweak Phantom Explosion to look right on Shrunken Phantom, added a Phobia Mode alternate portrait for the Zen Weaver event. User interface and experience. Limited the total number of cards rendered when playing the clone animation at a rest set to 15. This means that you can actually have clone runs that go to like 8,000, 9,000 cards, right, and up. Before your computer would just crash. Personally, I've not had this happen, but I've seen clips of it happening. Again, not going to happen very often. The chance you can actually, 1, get a clone run, and then 2, clone into that number, it just relies on having a lot of fires, right? So it's just not occurring very often, but at least your game's not going to crash now. That's a very good thing. Added translation issue drop-down option to the in-game feedback form. Outline darkness of continue button now matches the next dialogue arrow. Adjusted Gremlin Mercenary combat enemy hitboxes, speech bubble, and intent positions. Skulking Colony's health bar now changes color to indicate that it cannot take any more damage this turn. I like UI stuff like this. It just makes a game feel more polished. When hovering over stale dialogue at Ancients, all the dialogues will become opaque instead of just the one currently being hovered over. Added a more informative error pop-up for Steam bad cert error in multiplayer. If you move a current run.save with a modded character in it back to unmodded, you get an error instead of a black screen. So yeah, fixing a crash. Writing. Reworded Axbot's death message to reflect that there is only one of them now. Added more translated text for various languages, fixed translation errors, and a bunch of stuff. Audio. Added Soulfish background music. That's cool. I'm very excited for more music. I mean, as you can probably tell if you've watched my stream or been around in any of my videos, there's a lot of instruments back here. So yeah, music is a really big part of the game for me. And so far, there's only a couple of tracks that I really feel like are very memorable. So just having more stuff is really cool. Maybe one of them will be a complete banger. Added Kaiser Crab background music, added Kaiser Crab sound effects, added Hyper Beam sound effects. Hyper Beam has a really sick animation and also apparently a cool sound effect, so that's pretty nice. Probably still not picking the card very often though, unfortunately. Bug fixes. General, fix save files being lost or corrupted after a PC crash, blue screen, or power outage. Fix black screen soft lock when Steam would disconnect during room transitions. Fix the ceiling deck modifier not being affected by the multi-character card modifiers. Night Terror's modifier can no longer kill you. The perfect badge is no longer awarded if you abandon run at a boss. Fix being unable to navigate off of top bar in shop room. Fix being unable to controller navigate through rest set options when player has 2 rows of relics. Fix controller navigation in shop if you buy out all relics and colorless cards. The game no longer rapidly switches between controller detected and mouse detected when playing with controller. Fix being able to start a single player run via controller while the Ascension tutorial was open. Fix potion hover tip not appearing if you press B in the potion pop-up screen. Fixed errors in input settings for new key bindings added after saving. Fix rare problem where feedback screen is stuck open on game launch. Fix rare softlock when playing compact with status cards in hand. Fix softlock after the pop-up about shuffling in the tutorial. Fix Steam Cloud sync errors when syncing many run history files. Fix duplicate files appearing in run history after Steam Cloud sync. Restore the default rendering backend to D3, D12 for Intel's 620 GPUs. No idea what that means, but someone had their problem fixed, I'm sure. Fix audio staying muted after pressing volume keys or alt-tabbing on Linux. Fix crash on Linux when ICU libraries are unavailable. I know VM plays on Linux, so maybe he's happy about these. Okay, Ironclad. To avoid soft locking after setting up an infinite loop, i.e. Hellraiser plus 2 Pommel Strike cards, Hellraiser will only play 9 cards per turn if all enemies have infinite HP. Okay, this is not actually even infinite in the current, before patch state of the game. There was a really weird amount of cards that we played depending on how many pommels were in your deck. We don't have to get into that, but I guess now they have just addressed these like weird soft locks, and Hellraiser card now probably plays cards containing strike against enemies with infinite HP. So if you get like I don't know, Door Phase 1, which is now not in the game, so I don't really know what this is referring to. Maybe just against the Waterfall boss then. We'll probably play Strike. Silent, fix Fan of Knives cards, visual effects not playing. Regent, fix not being able to select cards with controller when you choose all the cards in your hand via guards card. Necrobinder, fix fetch card not glowing gold if it's drawn by gambling chip. Fix enfeebling touch power, causing ceremonial beast to gain strength after you stun it. I guess it's like an inverse whale trick bug. Colorless cards, fix visual effects sometimes failing to appear during rolling boulder power effect. Potions and relics. Players are now disallowed from throwing the foul potion if the merchant inventory is open. Using foul potion on the merchant no longer freezes the game on controller. Bookmark relic is now able to properly apply its cost reduction effect to a card that has been retained by a retain your hand effect like Equilibrium. Fix Beetlejuice potion causing Phantom's tail to become visibly cut off. If the player has the boot relic and now deals Skulking Colony 1 to 4 damage, they now properly take 5. Ancients. Fix issue where the top of the next dialogue bubble was slightly visible before it would animate in the Ancients. Fix being able to navigate back to Neow's Blessing option while looking at the card library. Fix card inspection button blocking accept hotkey when looking at P-Box, relic card view screen. Fix issue where playing Wish card via controller would immediately select a card in the grid on the same button press. Enemies. Fix Kaiser Crab appearing if you load into an already completed boss room. Weird. Never had that happen, but interesting. Re-centered Axebot in fight, so it looks like there's supposed to be only one of them. Thank God. That was like super triggering for my OCD. Fix a soft lock that occurred if the player set up an infinite against Skulking Colony. Similar to like the Hellraiser stuff, right? So the game is just going to like pull you out of your infinite and sort of limit it, I guess in specific fights. But I know I've been seeing some chatter on Discord that Hunter Killer is not properly configured for this, so there's still a couple of soft locks in the game. There's that, and I think one other thing that I'm blanking on. But yeah, still waits to soft lock that I'm sure they'll get to. Multiplayer. Fixed player names with brackets, e.g. clan tags, causing errors in multiplayer. Fixed state divergence related to mad science, juggling, and mixed combat speeds. Fixed strangle power proccing off of other players' card plays. Fixed occasional black screen when loading to a saved multiplayer combat. Fixed occasional state divergence caused by stampede plus headbutt cards. Other players' HP bars no longer go off screen when resizing the window while in settings. Disallow War Historian Repi duplicate Lantern Key card bonus if you're in multiplayer. That was a mouthful. Okay, overall, not a ton of changes. I think overall this is a lot of Defect buffs more than anything, and then like Doormaker getting changed out. There's a few weird things that we're just gonna have to play with it more, but overall it looks like just adding more stuff. Like we got new Neows, which I'm not opposed to. I do think we need Neows that don't feel so great, or the game just needs to like punish these sorts of ideas that they're putting in. We've gotten like File Holster recently, we've gotten this Glam thing, lots of just really, really strong upfront cards, as well as the pick 2 cards at the beginning of each run. So it feels like you're not really going to brick your Neow almost ever, which is maybe what they're going for. I'm not necessarily opposed to that idea. Again, I just don't know what they're trying to do. But yeah, it feels like if we keep getting strong stuff inside of Act 1, we're going to be able to snowball really consistently. And right now, Act 1 is sort of the bottleneck. If you have a bad Act 1, the rest of the run doesn't seem to go as well, of course. Spire is just a game built on this idea and concept of snowballing. So when you put strong stuff at the beginning of the run, it's just going to have compounding effects throughout. Adding more stuff like this means that you're going to have less interesting runs where you just break. And maybe the Glam can break and the cardboards can break or whatever, but like in general, these are just very, very strong effects that I'm not sure I love from a design perspective. But overall, I think they're like fun ideas. These cards are going to feel really good, which is maybe more important than it being super balanced right now, and the balance can come from Act 4 later. Like, I don't really particularly care how they address that. Again, I think I'm not the target audience right now, and that's okay. They will address top players and like end game later, right? Overall, there's not, again, that much stuff changing here. Defect got a lot of huge changes and buffs. I'm glad that they're probably just taking mental health seriously and not overworking and patching the game every 2 weeks. I don't really care if the patches are like necessarily bigger or more content or whatever. I just want them to not burn out, you know? The dev team's not that big, and making changes and adjustments is pretty hard, especially when the community has been so divisive lately. There's been a lot of drama surrounding like Gamergate and just stupid nonsense. So they're already having their hands full. Like if you've been in Spire main Discord recently, you've probably seen what a mess it is in there right now, and they're trying to handle that. There's just a lot of stuff going on right now, and I'm not necessarily like upset that they're scaling back to maybe focus their attention at dealing with other parts of the community or whatever. Yeah, overall, again, not a huge patch or anything. This doesn't really move the needle a ton. There's a few things I think are wildly outlandish, the main thing being Shatter buff that just shouldn't exist probably. It's way too strong. I don't feel super strongly about the other stuff. When we play with the boss, I'll probably decide if I like it more than Door or not. I really didn't mind the way that Door was constructed before, and again, I think I'm not the target audience. This is probably more a change aimed towards newer players and making them less frustrated with the game. But I do think friction is good. Like, we need enemies that make us change how our deck is going to play, and like this just feels like Door light almost. The numbers that it hits you for are kind of like Door, it looks like to me. And that's unfortunately not that big, and it takes turns off. So I don't think it'll be too difficult. Again, just need a large sample size here. And of course, on day one of this patch, we're not going to have that. So I might change my mind. But yeah, hopefully this was fine audio-wise. Managed to get through it in the van. And I will be back home and streaming probably in a day or two. And we'll go back to normal stuff. So yeah, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time.